Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez in the national spotlight. He testified this morning before a Senate committee after his nomination to lead ICE. But as Michelle Choi explains, this was not an easy hearing for him.
So if you will please stand.
It's the first step in the confirmation process for Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez to become head of ICE, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement.
Do you swear that the testimony you will give before this committee?
After being sworn in this morning, Gonzalez testified before the Senate Homeland Security and Governmental Affairs Committee, who will decide if he'll be approved to lead the agency, a position President Joe Biden himself tapped Gonzalez to run back in April.
I have been proud throughout my career as a law enforcement professional to uphold our nation's laws. If confirmed as ICE director.
Early on, committee members fired off tough questions.
Do you think that if an alien enters the country illegally, they should be subject to removal from the United States?
Yes.
Including how Gonzalez would deal with the ongoing border crisis and how he would boost worker morale within an agency that's been plagued with heavy criticism for its treatment of undocumented people.
I care deeply for the team members that work with me. I commonly use that phrase, team member. And so I would use that experience, if confirmed, to be ICE director, to come in, listen, to try to understand the work, understand what's working and where we could make things better.
They also questioned his qualification to lead an agency he's publicly criticized in the past. In 2019, he tweeted out he didn't support ICE raids and spoke out against SB 4, which allow law enforcement to ask for a detainee's legal status.
I am concerned, as you know, from our conversation about whether it would be appropriate for you to lead an agency that you've been so critical of.
Today's the first time lawmakers get to question Gonzalez, who has more than 2 decades of law enforcement experience, about his plan and approach as head of ICE. If confirmed, Gonzalez will leave his current role as Harris County Sheriff, a position he's held since 2016. Michelle Choi, KHOU 11 News.